Can we print it before GW ship it? Can we print it before GW ship it? Of course we can, 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 of course we can. Let's hear it for the Once in a Six-Side community members and their incredible paint jobs. Yeah! Well done, everyone. Now I'm going to do mine. And I wish I could tell you where you can get this model because it's such a beautiful sculpt and the attention to detail is just incredible on this thing. But I've spoken to the artist who recreated this fine mechanical coffin boy and they would like to remain anonymous. So you're going to have to find this one on your own if you want it and be respectful. If you know, don't put it in the comments, please. And to print this one off, I do want to use a resin printer today, but rather than lean on my trusty old Mono 2s, I think it's time I start having a look at some of the newer printers on the market. So here's the PO Create Hallet X1, which you've probably seen around already. It's a very interesting machine that, as I unboxed it, made some pretty good first impressions on me. Swingy door, who doesn't love those? Touchscreen and USB is up top. It's got a pretty innovative build plate with a twist release mechanism, which is super cool, and normally you got to sell a kidney for a feature like that. It is possibly going to be a pain in the ass to clean, but we shall see. Maybe we can just throw the whole thing in a wash machine. The vat is very nice too, all metal with a great pour spout on one corner. And finally, no thumb screws. Instead, it has these swiveling handles here that secure it in place. Love that. Clear release film in the bottom. Nice. But then this printer gets weird because rather than the build plate lowering to the vat LCD and the UV light source all raise up to the build plate, which is fine. Whatever, so long as it works, right? So anyway, I got all my Mono 2s out of the tent. I got the X1 in there, and sadly it's just not a fit with that swingy door, but thankfully it's an easy one to remove, and a couple of bolts later, I was able to fish that thing out of there. Little did I know that that was going to be the least of my worries, because this printer was about to completely ruin my day. After loading up the vat with some resin and figuring out the wireless networking from the machine to the slicer, I ran into my second hurdle here, which was innocent enough. The printer won't let you do anything without the door closed, but I removed the door. So after locating the door sensor and covering it up, it still didn't work, which in hindsight, I guess was actually a bit of a blessing in disguise because what happened next was just unthinkable. And if I hadn't put the door back in to get the thing working, I can only imagine just the pain. So as I began the print job, everything was going fine and the printer appeared to be doing everything correctly. The vat and everything else raised all the way up into the layer 1 position, but then it just stayed there. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and the printer never progressed to the next layer. So, okay, something had gone wrong, and when I tried to cancel the job, I couldn't. So the printer has frozen, essentially. Not a big deal, we can figure it out. So I cut the power, turned it back on, and then when the printer rebooted, it asked me if I would like to continue the previous job. So recovery on power loss is a feature. Nice. I agreed. And then I don't know if there are words for how devastating this is, how truly awful this was to see. So before resuming, the vat and everything else, I guess, lowers all the way to the bottom to 0 itself before then going all the way back to the top to resume. But the problem is, it was frozen, on the first layer, so the build plate was submerged in resin, and then as it's lowering down, it's just dripping everywhere. Oh, man. Shit like this just makes me want to never resin print again. So at this point, I rage quit, and I came back like more than a day later, once I'd gathered my courage to go in there and clean it all up. And I'd shot an email off to PO Create, or however you say it, and they asked me to install some new firmware, so I did that. We got the new firmware on. We tried again, and now it's even worse. Now the printer refuses to even do layer 1. No matter what slicer I use, this printer does not work. it's dead on arrival, I guess. They've given me more troubleshooting steps since, which I will try, but I really just want to do some hobby. I want to print a cool dreadnought right now. So I'll do all that another day. Right now, I'm going to grab another printer. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to follow along and see if I can eventually get this X1 working. I'm on my way to 100k subs here and we're nearly there. So thank you everyone who's already subscribed. And for the vast majority of you watching this who are likely a returning viewer who hasn't yet clicked on that button, please do so. It would really help me out a lot. And it would certainly lessen the sting of this shitty first experience with the Hallett X1. Now, I'm lucky to actually be starting this project a couple of weeks later than I had originally planned, because I now get the benefit of learning from the Six Side members who have already printed this thing off. And one of the issues that it looks like everyone encountered is the way that the weapon arms go together is really quite fiddly and apparently doesn't fit very well. So to make my life easier, I brought all of the pieces into Blender and just started pre-assembling this thing digitally. Now this is risky because you do leave lots of opportunities here for there to be little resin traps. So to work around that, I tried subtly rescaling things just to fill in the joints, as well as adding some primitives like some cylinders and just maneuvering them into place and scaling them and just getting them to where they take up any negative space inside those joints. And while this kit can be posed quite dynamically, like this one here, which looks like it's in, a full sprint, it's awesome. I am just going to do a super basic one where he's just standing on the spot. So I ended up also pre-assembling the legs, which is going to make my life a bunch easier, and the hips. And then once that was all done, I brought everything into Blueprint Studio, where I then used the repair tool to fix any of the overlapping shells and make all the pieces uniform. I decided to make some of them hollow as well, and Blueprint Studio does a really nice clean job of hollowing models. I then added some drain holes where I needed them. And then finally, I used the auto supports, and I've been testing these extensively with a few different resins and different size models, and they just always work. It's incredible. I don't know if I got this point across last time I talked about these automatic supports because I didn't talk about them in context. The context is all other auto supports are not reliable in my experience, but these ones are, which is just incredible. But anyway, so once I'd got them all supported, I then exported all of the files to STL, brought them into the Anycubic slicer, and got them prepared for the M5S Pro. And I did a dumb thing here. I shot myself in the foot because to try and save a couple of hours, I took the training wheels off. I lowered the light off delay from, it was 4 seconds down to 1. And the print bloody delaminated in a couple of places because it's a particularly thick resin, this one, so it's kind of slow to flow back into place before each layer begins. And so if you don't give it the time to do that, well, this happens. So I bumped the light off delay back up, resliced the parts I needed, and printed them again. And now it turned out perfect. Hey, you see all these awesome STL files here? If you come and join the Once in a Six Side membership this month, right now, you can have all of them. Just use the Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee links or the join button below this video and get signed up today. We have files from Arcane Whiskers, Sea Cohort, Fabricator's Lair, Goetia Miniatures, Houndhammer, Imp 3D, Sion, Lucas with a C, Moid, Neoteric Miniatures, Super Prince, and Tractor Miniatures. So come get them. There's a lot. They're all really cool. And they're only available till the end of this month. What are we? June. So come get them. Help support the channel, keep this party going, and all that fun stuff. And then once you've done that, go check out these awesome campaigns from some of our glorious benefactors. From Lucas with a C, there is the Faith and the Fathomless. There's over 120 grimdark sci-fi models in here for you. Next, from Fabricator's Lair is the Dawnhammer Bastion campaign. Fabricator's Lair makes incredible terrain, and this kit is no exception. Look at these buildings, they're incredible. So come get this kit on Kickstarter. And finally, from Warscape, the Shardstone City Quick Print Foldable Ruins. A set of 3D printable ruined cities which print fast, print flat, and fold together. How bloody cool is that? Supporting these artists is another great way to support this channel. And if you are a talented creator out there of STL 3D printable files in the miniatures verse and you want to get involved, I have the cheapest advertising on all of YouTube. All you got to do is just donate some minis to my wonderful members. So get in touch with me. Here's my email address. I look forward to hearing from you. So with the parts all washed thoroughly and cured, we do still have a bit of prep work to go here. While the automatic supports are great for print success, they're definitely not as good as had someone supported the files manually. The main downside here is that there are just so many of these tiny little supports hiding just absolutely everywhere. But one of you had a great suggestion for me, which was to use an old crusty toothbrush to clear them out, which I have been doing along with some wire brushes, and this works really, really well. So cheers for that. And remember what I said about resin traps? We got one. Well, kinda. This one's just a really skinny cavity behind that armor plate there that 20 minutes across 2 separate wash machines couldn't flush out. So I did my best here to just blast that cavity with alcohol directly before flooding it with UV light to hopefully put an end to any nasty leaking there. Some resins as well, no matter how well you clean them, just seem to completely disagree with superglue, and this sadly is one of them. I really struggled here to get this Gorilla Gel superglue to hold, so in the end I resorted to just running some alcohol over the connections to tack them in place. I don't love doing this because it turns the superglue into this nasty white crusty stuff which gums up all the detail, but it is preferable to trying to sit here perfectly still for 15 minutes holding everything in place. Now, going into this paint scheme, I was thinking I would be doing it the same way as I had done for the Saturnine Terminators a couple of videos back, but after getting the air dry clay in place and all of the skulls that I had left over, I forgot to actually put down a layer of glue before I pressed those skulls into the clay. So later on, once it had all dried, they weren't even really holding on. So I abandoned this plan, fished all the skulls out of there, and we'll figure something else out shortly. For each paint job that I undertake here on the channel lately, I've been trying to make sure that there's always at least one part that I try and push myself on to try and, study and practice a specific technique. And right now, the thing I'm trying to get good at is glazing, which is why for most of this model, I'm just going easy mode and dry brushing gunmetal over the black primer to give a pretty fast and nice metallic look to everything that's not an armor panel. And for the armor panels, I started off with a deep dark purple with the plan to try and work my way up to a super bright, almost pink purple. While I was painting this and placing my highlights, I was thinking about it as if it was a really reflective metal surface, as this is also something I'm trying to practice now. And in the end, I think I did okay in some areas, but in others, the highlights don't seem to make a whole lot of sense. This is one that I think is just going to take tons of reps before it starts to click and become intuitive or second nature, but I'll keep at it because the effect is still really cool in the end, even if it's technically incorrect in a bunch of ways here. This dude has a stinking big plasma gun, so there's no way I finish this paint job and don't have a crack at some object source lighting. I got it coated in white, and then using some sponge, I tried creating some soft spill light around those coils. This sort of worked okay, but I really should have just used the airbrush here, I think, which I ended up doing for the next step, which was magic blue. Sprayed this pretty thoroughly over top of those coils and around them, and I also shot some neighboring armor panels as well, which to my surprise actually looked pretty cool. Then to finish it up, I airbrushed a much lighter blue into the edges of those coils, running along those center bits, followed by brushing in some super bright pastel blue to finish it off. This was reasonably straightforward, and I'm pretty happy with the end result, and glad I took the chance to try it. For the eyes, I just dropped in some orange speed paint, and now for the base, I'd given it a coat of a leather brown air paint, turning it into a forbidden cookie, which I then coated in PVA glue, then dunked it in one of the Geek Gaming Scenics base ready mixers, and then once this had dried and I got the model on there, I absolutely hated the way it looked, which turns out is largely a color theory thing. Sometimes colors just clash, sometimes they synergize. Here, they're definitely clashing. So I ripped him off the base, grabbed some bright orange and red air paints, and absolutely covered this base completely, transforming it to a whole other biosphere. Ecosystem? Which word fits better here? I don't know. Planet? How about planet? We're on another planet now. Planet of the Pan Pastel. And I actually got these ages ago now, but never got around to trying them yet. This was also a viewer suggestion, so if you are that viewer and you're still with me, following along with the channel, thank you. These are absolutely awesome. Just going around with a brush and lightly dabbing them onto the base and the legs of the dread completely marries the two together in a really convincing and natural way. And now the color of our base and the color of our dread are synergizing beautifully, and after blacking out that base rim, she's done. All right, well, there it is. I'm quite happy with how that turned out. Let me know, though. What do you think? Do you hate it? Do you love it? Are you inspired? Are you subscribing? Thanks for watching.